Commander Velthus walked slowly into the great hall of the Galactic Hegemony. His body was old now, covered with scars from battles fought long ago. His forelegs made clicking sounds on the crystal floor as he moved toward the center of the room. Around him sat the 12 members of the High Council, the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. He had asked for this meeting for 3 months. They had refused him again and again. But now, with the invasion of Earth only days away, they had finally agreed to hear his words. Velthus knew this was his last chance to save his people from a terrible mistake. Supreme Arbiter Thiessen looked down at him from her elevated seat. Her insect-like face showed no emotion, but her voice carried clear amusement. Commander Velthus, you have served the hegemony well for many cycles. Your victories against the Drexar swarm are still taught in our military academies. But we are confused why you waste our time with warnings about a primitive world. Velthus took a deep breath. The memories of that day 50 cycles ago came flooding back. The blue planet, the green forests, and the creatures that lived there. The humans. Honored Council, he began, his voice rough with age. I was part of the first scouting mission to Earth. I was young then, full of pride and confidence. We landed with 200 of our finest soldiers. We thought we would study these primitive beings and return with a simple report. He paused, his body trembling slightly. Even after all these years, the fear had not left him. Only 12 of us came back. The council members shifted in their seats. This was not common knowledge. The report from that mission had been sealed and hidden away. We underestimated them, Velthus continued. They had no energy weapons, no shields, no spacecraft. Their tools were simple: metal and fire and gunpowder. We laughed at them. We thought they would run from us like all the other primitive species we had encountered. He looked directly at Supreme Arbiter Thiessen. They did not run. They attacked. Councilor Marcus, a large being with thick gray skin, leaned forward. 200 elite soldiers defeated by primitives with metal weapons? This sounds like a story to scare children. I wish it were a story, Velthus replied. I watched them fight. They did not care about their own lives. They threw themselves at us with a fury I had never seen. When their weapons failed, they used their hands. When their hands broke, they used their teeth. One human, wounded and bleeding from a dozen injuries, killed 17 of our warriors before we finally brought him down. The council was silent now. Velthus could see doubt in some of their eyes. His name was Sergeant Dawn. I learned this later from documents we recovered. He was not their strongest soldier or their best fighter. He was simply average for their species. An ordinary human. Velthus let that sink in. If an ordinary human could do this, imagine what their warriors can do. Supreme Arbiter Thiessen clicked her mandibles. Commander, we appreciate your concern, but you speak of events from 50 cycles ago. Perhaps your memory has exaggerated the danger. The humans have not even left their own planet. Their technology is still primitive compared to ours. That is what makes them dangerous. Velthus said, his voice rising. They are always fighting, always improving. In 50 cycles, they have gone from simple flying machines to vessels that can leave their world. They learn faster than any species I have ever seen. Counselor Yethra, the military advisor, spoke up. Commander, we have 3,000 warships ready for this invasion. The humans have nothing that can challenge our fleet. Their entire planet could be destroyed with a single command. Why should we fear them? Velthus shook his head slowly. Because you are thinking like conquerors. You see their weakness and assume victory. But the humans do not think like other species. They do not surrender when they are outmatched. They do not accept defeat. They adapt. They fight. And they never, ever stop. He reached into his worn uniform and pulled out a small metal disc. It was dented and stained with old blood. Sergeant Doan gave this to me before he died. He was surrounded, wounded beyond hope of survival. Any other being would have surrendered. Instead, he smiled at me. He smiled. And he said words that have haunted me for 50 cycles. The council leaned in, curious despite themselves. He said, "My friends will come for you. Maybe not today. Maybe not in your lifetime. But they will come. And when they do, they will remember what you did here." Velthos placed the metal disc on the floor before the council. This was his identification tag. I have kept it all these years as a reminder. A reminder that somewhere in the galaxy, there is a species that does not know fear, that does not accept defeat, that fights until their last breath and beyond. Supreme Arbiter Theson's expression hardened. Enough of this. Commander Velthos, we respect your service, but we cannot make decisions based on old fears. Earth's resources are too valuable to ignore. Their water, their metals, their position in the galaxy. The invasion will proceed as planned. Velthos felt his heart sink. He had known this would happen, but he had hoped perhaps he could reach them. "Then you doom us all," he said quietly. "We do what is necessary for the hegemony," Theson replied coldly. "You are dismissed, Commander." Velthos turned to leave, his old legs carrying him slowly toward the door. Before he exited, he stopped and spoke without looking back. "I have fought the Drexar swarm in the darkness between stars. I have survived the null fields of Kareth, where reality itself breaks apart. I have faced horrors that would drive most beings mad." He turned his head slightly, just enough for them to see the ancient terror in his eyes. "Nothing I have ever encountered frightens me like the memory of that human soldier smiling as he died." He walked out of the great hall, knowing that his words had failed. The invasion would happen, and the galaxy would learn the same lesson he had learned 50 cycles ago. In a forest on a small blue planet, the humans were not prey. They were the most dangerous predators the universe had ever created, and the hegemony was about to wake them up. The sky turned black over the Pacific Ocean on a Tuesday morning. 3,000 alien warships blocked out the sun, casting shadows across entire countries. People stopped in the streets and stared upward. Children pointed. Old men fell to their knees and prayed. The world held its breath. Supreme Commander Carveth stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. He had conquered 17 worlds in his career. This would be his 18th. The invasion would be quick, clean, and efficient. Within 30 days, Earth would belong to the hegemony. He broadcast the standard message of subjugation. His translators had converted it into every human language. The message was simple. Surrender immediately, and your species will be allowed to live as workers for the hegemony. Resist and face complete destruction. Earth's governments responded with confusion. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. They argued among themselves, unable to agree on anything. Carveth watched this chaos with satisfaction. A divided enemy was an easy enemy. Then the first bombs fell. Lieutenant Yuna was eating cold rice in an underground bunker when the attack began. She was 26 years old, a Marine in the Republic of Korea military. Her unit had been stationed in Bizon when the aliens arrived. Now, 6 hours later, half her unit was dead and the city was burning. But Yuna was not afraid. She was angry. "They hit the hospitals first," she told her remaining squad members. "They targeted the schools. They killed children to make us afraid." Private Taiwu, barely 19 years old, checked his rifle with shaking hands. "What do we do, Lieutenant? Their weapons can destroy buildings with a single shot. Our bullets barely scratch their armor." Yuna smiled grimly. "Then we don't fight fair." She led her squad into the ruins of the city. They moved through sewers and collapsed buildings, avoiding the alien patrols that marched through the streets. The aliens walked in straight lines, their movements precise and predictable. They did not check corners. They did not look up. They did not expect resistance. Yuna's squad killed 12 aliens that first night. They used knives and wire and bare hands. They struck from shadows and disappeared before reinforcements arrived. They took alien weapons from the bodies and learned to use them. By morning, the aliens had learned something new. Earth would not surrender quietly. Across the planet, similar stories unfolded. In the mountains of Afghanistan, fighters who had spent decades at war turned their skills against new enemies. In the jungles of South America, indigenous people used ancient knowledge to set traps that confused alien sensors. In the cities of Europe and America, ordinary people became soldiers overnight. Commander Carveth received reports that made no sense to him. His soldiers were dying in small numbers, ambushed by enemies they never saw. Supply lines were being cut by attacks that came from nowhere. Communication towers were being destroyed by bombs made from kitchen materials. "This is not possible," he told his officers. "We have orbital superiority. We have superior weapons. We have 400 cycles of military experience. How are primitives doing this?" His tactical advisor, a thin being named Sorthel, studied the reports carefully. "Commander, these humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not form battle lines. They do not protect their leaders. They attack and vanish. Every civilian is a potential soldier. Every building is a potential fortress." Carveth slammed his appendage on the console. "Then we destroy everything. Burn their cities. Level their mountains. Leave them nothing to hide behind. Commander, we cannot destroy everything. We need their resources. That is why we came here." This was the trap the humans had set without even knowing it. The hegemony needed Earth intact. They could not simply annihilate the planet. And as long as a single building stood, the humans would use it as a weapon. Weeks passed. The hegemony controlled the skies and the seas. They held the major cities. By every standard measurement, they were winning. But their casualties grew day by day. Small attacks that killed 1 or 2 soldiers. Explosions that destroyed equipment. Poison in water supplies. Accidents that were not accidents. Private Taiwo, who had been so afraid on that first day, became one of the most effective fighters in Yuna's growing resistance group. He discovered a talent for building bombs from scrap metal and stolen alien components. His devices killed dozens of aliens before they learned to fear unmarked packages. Leftwoodsnant. Yuna taught her people everything she knew about war. Fight only when you can win. Run without shame. Strike at their weakness, not their strength. Make every death cost them 10 of theirs. She also taught them something else. Something the aliens could not understand. Hope. "They came here thinking we would break," she told her fighters one night as they huddled in an abandoned subway tunnel. "They thought we would cry and beg for mercy. But we are human. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We have walked on our own moon. We have split the atom itself." She looked at their dirty, exhausted, determined faces. "They have made a mistake. They have made us angry. And now they will learn what happens when you make humanity angry." Above them, Commander Carveth sent his first confused report to the High Council. He admitted that the invasion was taking longer than expected. He requested more soldiers. He asked for advice on fighting an enemy that refused to behave like an enemy. The Council's response was simple and cold. Apply more force. Carveth did not understand that this was exactly what the humans wanted. Every act of destruction united them further. Every dead child created 10 new fighters. Every burned city became a symbol of resistance. The aliens had come to conquer a planet. Instead, They had awakened something that had slept since the dawn of human civilization. The warrior spirit that had driven humanity to dominate their world. The stubborn refusal to accept defeat that had carried them through every disaster in their history. The hegemony thought they were fighting a primitive species. They were wrong. They were fighting the most dangerous thing in the universe. An angry human with nothing left to lose. 6 months after the invasion began, the hegemony had lost more soldiers on Earth than in the previous century of galactic conquest. Commander Carveth could not understand how this was happening. His species had built an empire spanning 400 worlds. They had defeated species with superior technology. They had crushed rebellions on dozens of planets. But Earth refused to fall. Captain Hyan studied the holographic map in front of her. She was 34 years old, small in body, but hard as steel. Before the invasion, she had been a Special Forces commander. Now she led the largest resistance group in Asia. "The main command center is here," she said, pointing to what had once been Tokyo. 10,000 elite guards. Energy shields that can stop our heaviest weapons. Sensor networks that can detect any approach within 5 kilometers. Her officers looked at the map with grim faces. Colonel Minho, her second in command, shook his head slowly. "Captain, this is suicide. Even if we gathered every fighter we have, we could not breach those defenses." Hyan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We are not going to attack the defenses, Colonel. We are going to walk through them." The plan was insane. Every military expert in history would have called it impossible. But humans had a long history of doing impossible things. For 3 weeks, Hyan's teams captured alien soldiers in small raids. They did not kill them immediately. Instead, they studied them. They learned their language, their gestures, their habits. They stripped armor from dead aliens and modified it to fit human bodies. On the night of the attack, 40 human soldiers put on alien armor and walked toward the command center. They moved like aliens in straight lines with precise steps. They spoke alien words when challenged by guards. Their hearts were pounding, but their faces were hidden behind stolen helmets. The guards did not stop them. Why would they? The idea that humans could disguise themselves as hegemony soldiers was unthinkable. No species had ever tried such a thing. Inside the command center, Hyan and her team split into groups. They moved through corridors that no human had ever seen. They passed control rooms filled with alien technology. They climbed levels until they reached the shield generators. Private Sujin, the youngest member of the team, planted the first charge. Her hands were steady despite her fear. "Captain, we have 3 minutes before patrol rotation." Hyan nodded. "Then we have 3 minutes. Move." They worked in silence, placing explosives on shield generators, communication arrays, and power conduits. Years of fighting had taught them exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. They knew alien technology better than many aliens did. When the explosions came, the command center fell into chaos. Shields flickered and died. Communications went dark. Thousands of alien soldiers ran through corridors, not knowing where the enemy was or how they had gotten inside. Hyan and her team moved through the confusion like ghosts. They killed quietly when necessary and avoided combat when possible. Their goal was not the soldiers. Their goal was the commander himself. They found Carveth in his private quarters, staring at screens that showed only static. His guards lay dead around him, killed so quickly they had not even drawn their weapons. The great conqueror of 17 worlds was alone and defenseless. He reached for a weapon on his desk. Hyan kicked it away before his appendage could touch it. "How?" Carveth demanded, his translator turning his clicks and whistles into human speech. "How is this possible? You are primitives. You have no advanced technology. You cannot even agree among yourselves on simple matters." Hyan removed her helmet and let him see her face. Let him see the cold determination in her human eyes. "That is your mistake," she said. "You think technology wins wars. You think unity wins wars. But we have learned something in our thousands of years of fighting each other. War is not about weapons or numbers or strategy." She stepped closer to him, and even though she was small, the alien commander backed away. War is about will. The will to keep fighting when everything says you should surrender. The will to sacrifice yourself for something larger. The will to do whatever it takes, no matter how terrible, to protect what you love. Through the windows, they could see the hegemony fleet in orbit. 3,000 ships that could destroy the planet with a single command. Carveth pointed at them triumphantly. "You cannot win. Even if you kill me, my fleet will burn your world to ash." Hyan smiled. "Check your communications." Carveth turned to his screens. His technicians had restored partial function. What he saw made his blood run cold. Across the planet, similar attacks were happening at the same moment. Command centers in Europe, America, Africa, and Australia were falling to coordinated human assaults. His commanders were dying. His communication network was collapsing. His fleet was receiving contradictory orders from a dozen sources in orbit. His 3,000 ships were beginning to turn on each other, confused by fake commands that humans had learned to send. "You study war as a science," Hyan said, watching his empire crumble. "You analyze and calculate and predict. But we live war as an art. We feel it in our bones. We have been doing it since before your species learned to walk upright." She did not kill him. Instead, she did something far more devastating. She let him live. "Go home," she told him. "Return to your council. Tell your masters what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not a resource to be taken. Tell them we are a warning to be remembered." She gestured to her team, and they faded back into the shadows as quietly as they had come. Carveth fled to his shuttle and escaped to orbit. Behind him, the human resistance began the long work of freeing their planet. And in his mind, the image of that small human woman with cold eyes burned like a brand. He had conquered 17 worlds. But on the 18th, he had learned what it truly meant to lose. 12 years had passed since the aliens fled Earth. 12 years of rebuilding, of mourning the dead, of turning anger into purpose. The humans had not forgotten what had been done to them. They had not forgotten the burning cities and the murdered children and the arrogance of those who thought them weak. But more importantly, they had not wasted a single day. Admiral Jisoo stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, watching stars streak past the view screen. She was 52 years old now, her hair gray at the temples, her eyes carrying the weight of everything she had seen. She had been a young naval officer when the invasion came. She had watched her ship sink under alien fire. She had swum through burning water and crawled onto a beach covered with bodies. Now she commanded the most powerful fleet humanity had ever built. "Admiral, we are approaching the Vesser system," reported Commander Junho, her first officer. "The hegemony home world is in sensor range." Jisoo nodded slowly. "How many ships are defending it?" 2,000 warships. Multiple orbital platforms. Ground-based weapons capable of reaching orbit. Jisoo allowed herself a small smile. "They have prepared well." "Not well enough," Junho replied. The United Earth Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a hammer falling on glass. 1,000 human warships, built from stolen alien technology and improved with human ingenuity. Their designs were ugly compared to the elegant curves of hegemony vessels. They looked brutal and angry, covered with weapons and armor. They looked exactly like the species that had built them. The hegemony defenders scrambled into formation. They had known this day would come. For 12 years, they had watched the humans build their fleet. They had prepared their defenses. They had trained their soldiers. They were ready, or so they believed. All ships, begin attack pattern Yuna, Jisoo commanded, using the name of the resistance leader who had taught them how to fight. Let them see what we have become. The human fleet did not attack in straight lines. They did not follow predictable patterns. They swarmed like angry insects, each ship moving independently, yet somehow coordinating perfectly with the others. They attacked weak points that the hegemony did not know existed. They sacrificed individual ships to create openings for devastating strikes. The hegemony commanders had never seen anything like it. Their computer models could not predict human movements. Their tactical training had not prepared them for an enemy that thought in completely alien ways. Because to the galaxy, humans were the aliens, unpredictable, irrational, dangerous. Commander Carveth, who had never recovered from his shame on Earth, watched the battle from a bunker on the planet's surface. He had tried to warn them. After his defeat, he had spent years telling anyone who would listen about the danger humanity posed. Most had dismissed him as a broken commander making excuses for his failure. Now, they were learning the truth. Ship after ship of the hegemony fleet exploded under human fire. The defenders fought bravely, but bravery was not enough. The humans had spent 12 years studying their enemy. They knew every weakness, every flaw, every blind spot in hegemony technology and tactics. The battle lasted 3 days. On the first day, the hegemony lost half their fleet. On the second day, they lost their orbital platforms. On the third day, the surviving ships surrendered. Admiral Jisoo stood on her bridge, looking at the conquered world below. Millions of aliens lived there. Civilians who had never held a weapon. Children who had been born after the invasion of Earth. Admiral, Juno said quietly, "What are your orders?" This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. They could destroy the planet, as the hegemony had tried to destroy Earth. They could enslave the population, as the hegemony had planned to enslave humanity. They could take revenge for every death, every burning city, every broken family. Jisoo thought of her mother, who had died in the first attack. She thought of her sister, who had starved during the occupation. She thought of the millions of humans who had suffered and died. Then she thought of Captain Hyam, who had let Commander Carveth live, who had understood that mercy could be more powerful than revenge. "Open a channel to the surface," Jisoo commanded. "All frequencies." The communication officers obeyed. Across the hegemony home world, every screen and speaker activated. "People of Desser Prime," Jisoo said, her voice calm and clear. 12 years ago, your empire came to our world. You came to take our resources, our freedom, our future. You came expecting an easy conquest." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You were wrong. We fought back. We bled for every meter of ground. We lost millions of our people, but we never surrendered. And now we have come to your world with the power to do to you what you tried to do to us." On the planet below, millions of aliens waited in terror for the death they believed was coming. "But we are not like you," Jisoo continued. "We did not come here for revenge. We did not come here to conquer. We came here to end the war and to deliver a message." She looked at the planet on her view screen, at the cities full of frightened beings. "The age of your empire is over. From this day forward, every species in this galaxy is free. No more conquests. No more slavery. No more forced labor. If any power threatens the freedom of any world, Earth will answer. We will protect the weak as we once wished someone had protected us." She leaned forward, her voice hardening. "But remember this? We are watching. We are always watching. And if you ever forget the lesson we taught you today, we will return. And next time, there will be no mercy. There will be only fire." The transmission ended. The human fleet took up positions around the planet, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Below them, the hegemony civilians emerged from their shelters, confused and afraid, but a live dot in his bunker. Old Commander Carveth heard the human admiral's words and wept. Not from joy or sadness, but from the sheer overwhelming relief of finally being proven right. He had warned them. They had not listened. And now the galaxy would never be the same. 50 years had passed since the liberation of Thesser Prime. The galaxy had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Galactic Hegemony, that vast empire that had once controlled 400 worlds, was gone. In its place stood the Interstellar Commonwealth, a voluntary alliance of species that resolved disputes through words rather than weapons. At the heart of this new order stood humanity, not as rulers or emperors, but as something far more important. Guardians, protectors, the species that had taught the galaxy the price of tyranny. Ambassador Mizzo walked through the corridors of the Commonwealth Assembly building. She was 60 years old, with silver hair and kind eyes that had seen both war and peace. As a child, she had hidden in basements while alien soldiers searched for survivors. As a young woman, she had fought in the resistance. Now she represented Earth, to a galaxy that still did not fully understand her species. Today was the 50th anniversary of first contact between humans and aliens. Representatives from 100 species had gathered to commemorate the event. Mizzo would address them all. The assembly hall was enormous, built to accommodate beings of every shape and size. Some floated in liquid tanks. Others perched on branches designed for their bird-like forms. Still others sat in chairs adapted for their unusual bodies. All of them turned to watch as Mizzo took the central platform. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her words translated instantly into 100 languages. 50 years ago, a fleet came to our world. They expected to find primitives, savages who would bend easily under superior force. They did not understand what humanity truly was. She paused, looking around at the gathered representatives. Some were descendants of species that had been enslaved by the hegemony. Others were former hegemony members who had learned to live in the new order. All of them owed their freedom to the events of 50 years ago. We are a young species by galactic standards. We had not even left our own solar system when the hegemony arrived. But we had something that older species had lost. We had fire in our hearts. We had the memory of thousands of years of struggle. We had the absolute refusal to accept defeat. In the audience, a young hegemony historian named Vorthan listened with particular intensity. He was the great-grandson of Commander Carveth, the alien who had led the failed invasion of Earth. His entire life had been shaped by the shame his family carried. He had spent years studying the invasion, trying to understand how his ancestors could have made such a catastrophic mistake. He had read every report, every analysis, every survivor testimony. And still the humans confused him. "When your fleet came to our door," Mizzo continued, "we did not run. We did not beg. We fought with everything we had, from rocks and sticks to captured alien weapons. We fought in our cities and our mountains and our seas. We made you pay for every step you took on our world." She smiled, but there was no joy in it. Only the memory of pain. We lost millions of our people. Mothers and fathers. Sons and daughters. Friends and lovers. The scars of that war will never fully heal. But we survived. And when we finally pushed you back to the stars, we could have stopped there. We could have hidden on our world and hoped you would never return. Her voice hardened. But that is not the human way. We knew that as long as the hegemony existed, no world was safe. So we built our own fleet. We came to your home. And we ended an empire that had stood for 1,000 years. The assembly was silent. Every being remembered the stories their parents had told them about those days. About the human warships appearing in skies that had never known war. About the terror and confusion as an empire crumbled. But then we did something that surprised everyone, including ourselves. Mizo's voice softened. We did not become the new tyrants. We did not enslave you or destroy you. Instead, we helped you build something new. Something better. She gestured at the assembly hall around her. This commonwealth is not our empire. We did not create it to rule over you. We created it because we believe that every species deserves freedom. Every world deserves peace. We fight so that others do not have to. After the formal ceremony, the representatives mingled and talked. Vorthen approached Ambassador Mizo hesitantly. He was tall for his species, with the same rough carapace that all hegemony beings possessed. But his eyes held something that Mizo recognized immediately. A desperate need to understand. Ambassador, he said, bowing in the human fashion he had studied. May I speak with you? Mizo nodded kindly. Of course. You are Carveth's great-grandson, are you not? I recognize your family markings. Vorthen was surprised. You know of my family? I know the history very well. Your great-grandfather led the invasion of Earth. My grandmother was killed in the first bombardment. She saw the shame flood his face and raised a hand gently. I do not blame you for the actions of your ancestors. That is not the human way either. Vorthen struggled with his words. I have spent my life trying to understand. My great-grandfather said that Captain Hyan spared him when she could have killed him. He never understood why. Do you know? Mizo was quiet for a long moment. Captain Hyan believed that mercy was humanity's greatest weapon. Not our anger or our stubbornness, but our ability to show compassion even to our enemies. Your great-grandfather carried our message back to the galaxy. His survival was the first step toward the peace we have now. Vorthen nodded slowly. There is one more thing. Commander Velthos, the one who tried to warn the Council before the invasion. His journals are required reading in our academies now. We teach our young ones what he tried to teach our leaders. Mizo's eyes brightened with interest. What did he write? Vorthen's translator hummed as he quoted the ancient words. His first entry after returning from Earth said only one thing. It said, do not wake the humans, for they do not merely fight to survive. They fight to win, and they have never learned how to lose. Mizo laughed softly, the first genuine laugh she had allowed herself in this formal setting. He understood us better than most of your people ever did. She turned and looked up through the transparent dome of the assembly hall. Among the countless stars, one small yellow point of light was visible. Earth's sun, the home of a species that had changed the destiny of a galaxy. We are not perfect, Mizo said, still gazing at that distant star. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. We have fought wars that destroyed millions. We have built weapons that could end all life on our world. She turned back to Vorthen. But we have also created beauty and love and art. We have dreamed of stars and reached for them. We have faced extinction and refused to die. That is what your ancestors did not understand. They saw our divisions and thought us weak. They saw our wars and thought us barbaric. She placed a gentle hand on his armored shoulder. They did not see that those same qualities made us the most determined species in the universe. When we are united against a common enemy, nothing can stop us. When we fight for something we believe in, we become unstoppable. Vorthen looked at her with new understanding. So the real lesson of the invasion was not about military tactics or technology. No, Mizo agreed. The real lesson was simple. Never underestimate humanity. We may be young. We may be small. We may fight among ourselves. But when something threatens what we love, we become something else entirely. She smiled at him, and in that smile was all the warmth and all the steel of her species. We become human, and that is the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Above them, through the dome, Earth's sun continued to shine. A small yellow star among billions. The home of a species that had learned to fight before they learned to walk. A species that had never accepted defeat. A species that had taken on an empire and won. The hegemony had come to Earth as conquerors. They had left as refugees. And the galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the ages. Do not wake the humans. They do not know how to lose.